Hi guys, Raging Demons coming back to you. Now, it was William Shakespeare that famously said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And I hate to get really highfalutin on you, or, try and be all neo-hipster and really try and, I guess, see, I don't want it to come across that I'm trying to display an exceptional amount of culture just because I can quote freaking Shakespeare. But you gotta admit, the Bard wasn't wrong when it comes to especially our chosen style of gaming. Why is that? Because it's role playing. It's no different than acting at its base level. At the same time, though, it's not necessary to be so expressive. I mean, we strive for it. We try to get people to really immerse themselves in the in the rich broth that is made by our collective imagination. But some people just aren't really into that as much. But they still need to role play. It's part of the game. Now, this video, of course, is about player character death. You've been playing a while, or a short time, and your character has died. What do you do? How do you deal with it? I find the best approach is to, well, as a GM, DM, encourage the characters to tend to the body in some way, as opposed to leaving them for the carrion birds. Although sometimes it's not feasible. It being like a dungeon crawl, deep spelunking, you're not gonna be able to get out of there with the body. So, what I'm going to address though is player character death early on. Some of these games, and through no fault of their own, they have rule systems which basically make it take almost an hour, maybe an hour and a half to create a character. And sometimes you get, depending on the scenario, your character gets in, 5 minutes in, poof, he's dead. Well, what the hell is that? That's unlike a computer game where there's just a simple respawn click. Ours is more making a new character or something of that sort. Now, when somebody dies that quickly, you first have to ask the player, do they have any interest in making a new character so soon? If they don't, then you either find a way to incorporate a new character, which is basically almost identical to what they were just playing, get them to reroll stats, that sort of thing. Or you will have to basically hold off until they are clear of whatever danger and then try and incorporate them then. What I'm trying to say is that don't immediately send your players back to the drawing board just because your encounter killed their character 5 minutes in. I mean, if they're being foolish, well, fools get what they deserve. And they, that should be the lesson learned, that, maybe play a little bit more responsibly and you wouldn't have these sort of issues. Now, in regards to some alternative methods, I mean, if the player characters sitting around the table would like to bring this person back, I mean, many games have options like that. D&D has resurrection spells. I believe many games actually have that. And there's ways back. I mean, stuff like Vampire the Masquerade, you're probably not going to have that option, but I would hate to think that you didn't last very long as a character in Vampire the Masquerade. It's a role-playing heavy system, even though I tend to ramp up the amount of action that takes place, because frankly, a lot of storytellers I've had tend to drag it and make it very. Oh, I want to say that it was interestingly political or social, but it's not. Sometimes it can, for me, it was a good game, I'm sure, for all those others attending, but for me, it was just a snore fest. So, I hate to think your character dies quickly in that game. I also keep track of how they die, what killed them, and you know what? Sometimes this has become this just a hilarious, uh, bit of reminiscing for you and your group later on down the road. I actually have a binder that was started by my original group here in Canada, and it kind of bequeathed it to me, and it's sort of lasted in some incarnation or another. I wish I still had the bulk of it, but it's a graveyard, and the graveyard binder has all the dead characters and all the retired characters, which is nice because the retired characters can be brought back as veteran NPCs. And every time, you used to get a kick out of it. Every time the character died, they would write at the top, killed by blah, and sometimes, we'd go back and take a look and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was so, it's just, I don't know. When you start developing like a history with your gamers, you get some nice memories. I'm just saying, because at the end of the day, these folks are all your friends. I mean, you're choosing to spend your waking moments with and share a game, and sometimes people have fond memories of going to the ballpark, whereas we have fond memories of sitting around a table rolling some polyhedral dice, or pretending to be elves and halflings and so on and so forth, and while our extremely book-read friend will sit there and recite happy birthday to us in full-on Lord of the Rings elf. I mean, that's just the kind of people we are. But more to the point, PC death is not something that should be taken lightly. It can be laughed off if it's really a funny death. I mean, come on. We've all kind of giggled at somebody in a slasher flick who has a really funny death. It's like, well, you shouldn't open that bottle of champagne. Who would have guessed the cork would have went completely through your head? Like, just something that comical? Come on now. I mean, you can't help but laugh. At the same time, I mean, sometimes a character's death can completely torpedo a game. I know because I had one she was basically like the lead of the game. And there was a lot of prophecy and story hooks tied into her. And they'd been playing long enough that they had gotten up really high levels, so there was grounds to actually put that much into that character. Unfortunately, when she died, this particular game player decided that, well, they're not going to make another character, which I understood. But they also just had no interest in playing anymore because now they have died. And that kind of hurts. It was just, it was their first time trying it out. They really liked it. But, I don't know, something for them, they just couldn't do it again. And which kind of stung. But at the same time, I mean, the death was handled very respectfully. I mean, this is supposed to be a living person in a world, and your characters are supposed to be people who live in said world. And what are you gonna do? Just be like, oh, that is a shame. Look, our paladin has died. I wonder how much I can get his plate mail for. Like, I can get for his plate mail. Yeah, you're gonna have a character that says that, but just seeing your fellow players as loot bags waiting to happen, come on now. If you really want to see something that's around player character death that I find rather humorous, I suggest watching the Celebrity PAX 2010 game held by Chris Perkins and with the guys from Penny Arcade, and Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton's character in the podcast dies. His elf AFL, sprung a trap, an acid pit trap, and fell in, and he basically melted to death. Which they laugh off, and actually Chris Perkins brings him back through a very creative way, and I think everybody would either A, have a better game just based on taking in some of that session from PAX 2010, and B, I think it's just a good laugh. I mean, we do have to laugh at ourselves as gamers, and really, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us do make our jokes during the game, and there are actually inside jokes that we have from some of our sessions that nobody else is gonna get, not even other gamers. They'll be like, "What? I understood half of what you just said, but I have no idea why that's funny." For us, it's funny. Just ask any of my players about Rum Pum Thunderfoot, the halfling barbarian, who actually was originally comic relief, but ended up being probably one of the biggest badasses in that party. I mean, he proclaimed so, but he was one of the biggest badasses in that party. So, but player character death is not the end of the world. And as a game master, you have many choices ahead of you, and depending on where your game's at, what your player wants to do, how essential that character was, how long has that character been played, take all these things into account before deciding what to do. Because PC death is a disrupting factor in a game, and you know it's a possibility, but you strive not to have it happen. Bottom line, just use your head, use your best judgment, use your experience, and if you have any doubts or wonders, I mean, there's channels like mine and many more that are much more experienced about this sort of thing, and you just just plead your case and find out for yourself. I'm sure this is discussed in a forum somewhere. I mean, it's the bloody internet. Everything is discussed. So I'm pretty sure that between your own personal knowledge and anything you acquire along the way, you'll do what's best. But that's it for this time. Keep the dice rolling, and we'll talk to you next time. Cheers.